Squidward Tentacles. He cements his legacy as one of the most iconic characters of the SpongeBob cast, although he is hardly remarkable within the universe.
Spare change. Spare change, ma'am.
Squidward often maintains a critical attitude when something gets on his nerves, which it seems like it always does.
What do you want?
The episode Are You Happy Now explores how a negative outlook can spiral into depression to completely destabilize everyday living. This episode is framed as SpongeBob's attempts to find Squidward a happiest memory. Squidward's sense of happiness relies on the world to operate by his expectations, and this episode shows him over and over that this standard is unrealistic. This episode begins in the Krusty Krab. SpongeBob is laughing, going through his highly revered book.
The Krusty Krab work schedule.
Okay, seriously. Well, anyway, SpongeBob reveals his happiest memories are made at the Krusty Krab, which explains his excitement browsing through the work schedule. On the other hand, Squidward, when prompted about his happiest memories, can't recall any.
I guess I don't have a happiest memory. Oh, well.
This launches the episode-long journey between the two to help Squidward make his happiest memory.
This is horrible.
Don't worry, Squidward. I'll help you make a happiest memory.
They go to a concert, to an art museum, and on a hot air balloon. Squidward even sees his own sculpture at the museum, but none of these activities turn out as Squidward's happiest memory due to unforeseen circumstances. At the concert?
This is not my happiest memory.
At the museum.
Not a happiest memory.
And on the hot air balloon.
Except that I'm afraid of heights.
Squidward forfeits the search and isolates himself. As time goes by, Squidward's house becomes increasingly messy, indicating his decreased self-care. SpongeBob, in his unrelenting efforts to get Squidward a happiest memory, manages to kidnap Squidward out of his house, bringing him to the Krusty Krab where he is greeted by a surprise party.
Surprise!
Squidward, in a fit of rage at SpongeBob's refusal to leave him alone, enters a frenzied state where he loses all personal inhibition and tears up the decoration. In the end, though, Squidward says,
I feel wonderful.
and SpongeBob is right by him, beaming. Squidward was relying on his happiness to originate from external sources. When the episode began, Squidward delegated to SpongeBob the task of experiencing happiness.
I'll help you make a happiest memory.
Really? Do you think you can?
No problem.
This doomed their expedition for happiness to failure from the start. In the first few activities together, Squidward almost enjoys himself, but there is always something to ruin the moment. While Squidward's grievances are completely fair and valid, the repeated incidents also demonstrate that there will always be something wrong. To expect otherwise is unrealistic, and it seems like Squidward is only accepting of the perfect occasion to become his happiest memory. However, things often do not go as planned. Relying on an external event to conform to Squidward's expectations to create his own happiness is simply unrealistic. When they deviate, they only induce frustration. Since these events are externally controlled, Squidward's happiness depends on the randomness of external conditions. He depends on the perfect dice roll to give meaning to his life, which doesn't work in his favor.
Wake me when I'm dead.
The art museum scene is interesting. Squidward's sense of happiness is seemingly from his own accomplishment as an artist. However, Squidward's joy is not from his pride in his own ability. Instead, it's due to the presence of his work in a museum. To make this distinction, the episode included that Squidward didn't know how a statue got there.
Oh, what the? This is my sculpture. How did it get here?
If Squidward didn't put in the work to submit his piece into the museum, the reward of it being accepted is undeserved. In essence, Squidward's momentary happiness at the museum relied on magic to transport his creation there. Because Squidward's happiness was so dependent on external factors just working out, it was also highly susceptible to being crushed by things not going how they should, as this episode shows us over and over. So ultimately, Squidward retreats back into his house. Notably, before he goes back in, he exclaims,
I'll never have a happiest memory. And if I do, it definitely won't involve you.
again reinforcing his conception of how his happiest memory should play out. He tries adopting a pet to cheer him up, but he is even more dejected when he realizes caring for it is harder than expected. He expected the pet to bring him happiness, but it only offered misery.
Maybe this will help. Nope, I guess not.
In a line that summarizes his experiences throughout the episode, Squidward says,
I see nothing but darkness ahead.
Squidward always focused on the unpleasant moments, so that is all he sees ahead. As we recall, he was always complaining.
It's not my happiest memory. Not a happiest memory. I'm afraid of heights!
It becomes defining of his life and sucks meaning out of his experiences. When everything is constantly going wrong, when Squidward is depending on perfection to come his way, life becomes miserable. It's empty because Squidward has been constantly delegating happiness to external events. It's empty because his outlook on life lacks agency. It's empty because Squid's life is swept by randomness and chaos with no coherence that provides for meaning. Not only does he retract from things he previously enjoyed doing, but others retract from him. This creates a self-amplifying spiral into emptiness and loneliness. When SpongeBob kidnaps Squidward and surprises him with a party, he reveals that others weren't exactly eager to come.
Unfortunately, everyone I tried to invite was busy or sick.
We've all heard and made excuses of being sick or busy when we just don't want to attend something. Squidward's persistent negative outlook not only distorted his perception of life, but chased others away. Nobody wants to hang around the guy. What results from Squidward's negative outlook is an ever-amplifying cycle of pushing others away and reclusive behavior.
Well, at least we know he's still alive.
Looking at this episode again from SpongeBob's perspective, it's clear he was always finding opportunities to enjoy himself. Things don't have to work out for SpongeBob to be smiling.
Hey! We're the first to ever reach the top of Mount Bikini! Surely that must make for a happiest memory.
In fact, the episode begins with SpongeBob's obsession with the work schedule. A work schedule symbolizes a daily commitment with a journey, rather than any specific event or outcome. A work schedule includes all the good and bad days that SpongeBob had at the Krusty Krab, and crucially, the bad ones do not preclude his happiness. In the final scene, Squidward, in his frenzy, rips up SpongeBob figures and climbs up the beam, saying,
I feel wonderful!
In a sharp contrast, nothing in this party conforms to his expectations for what should make him happy. He didn't want to be there. He didn't want to be around SpongeBob. However, Squidward manages to find a moment when he could be happy, and a moment that didn't depend on the perfection of external conditions.
Isn't it my happiest memory?
He's so handsome.